Lena sat in the front pew of the church, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. The polished oak coffin at the altar was almost too much to bear, but she refused to let the tears fall. Her mother was inside that coffin, a woman who had always been distant, too caught up in her own world to notice Lena. A woman whose love she had desperately sought all her life, only to be met with the painful realization that it would never be hers. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of finality, of closure. The kind she had been longing for, but knew she would never truly get. Beside her, her younger sister Mia sobbed loudly, her dramatic wails filling the quiet church. Mia, the golden child. Mia, the one who could do no wrong. Even now, at their mother's funeral, Mia managed to be the center of attention. She leaned against her husband, Sean, who wrapped a comforting arm around her, his face a picture of concern. Mia's black dress was immaculately styled, her blonde curls falling perfectly over her shoulders, while Lena, in comparison, felt small and insignificant. As the priest gave his final blessing, Lena felt the familiar tension between her and the rest of the family. They all knew, everyone knew that Mia would inherit everything. Lena had prepared herself for it, had told herself it wouldn't matter. But it did. Nothing could have prepared her for the lawyer's words that followed the service. "I'm sorry, Lena," Mr. Whitaker, the family lawyer, said, his glasses slipping down his nose as he adjusted the papers in front of him. "Your parents left everything to Mia." Lena's breath caught in her throat. "Everything?" she repeated, her voice unnervingly steady. "Yes," Mr. Whitaker hesitated. "Your parents believed you were financially independent enough not to need their support. Mia, on the other hand, being a stay-at-home mother, required their help more." Lena's nails dug into the fabric of her dress, the anger rising in her chest. Mia, who had everything, a husband with a high-paying job, a perfect home, and a life of luxury, was the one their parents decided to help. Lena, who had worked tirelessly to build her own life, had been cast aside. "That's ridiculous," Aunt Emma muttered from the corner, her voice thick with disapproval. But Mia didn't seem surprised. She let out a soft, practiced sigh, her delicate features perfectly composed. "It makes sense, Lena," she murmured, placing a hand over hers as if offering comfort. "Mom and Dad just wanted to help me. You've always been so strong, so independent." Lena's heart clenched as she pulled her hand away. "You knew, didn't you?" Mia hesitated, then nodded. They may have mentioned it." Lena's eyes burned with the weight of the unspoken truth. They had known. And still, they had decided she was unworthy of their love. A wave of cold, numbing anger washed over her, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she smiled, smooth and controlled, just like she always had. "If they think I don't need their money," she whispered, "they have no idea what I'm capable of now." She stood up, brushing the dust from her dress. "Thank you, Mr. Whitaker," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "I won't be contesting the will." Mia blinked, clearly surprised. "You're not upset?" she asked, her voice almost accusatory. Lena turned toward her sister, offering a small, almost imperceptible smirk. "Oh, Mia," she murmured, leaning in closer so only her sister could hear. "I don't need their money." Mia's shoulders sagged in visible relief, thinking this was some form of surrender. But Lena wasn't finished. As she walked out of the lawyer's office, her mind was already working on her next move. Her revenge would be calculated. She wasn't just going to walk away from this. Not this time. Lena sat in her small apartment that night, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. The words repeated in her head, over and over, "Your parents left everything to Mia." Of course they did. Why had she ever expected anything different? Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. A text from Aunt Emma popped up. "Lena, I just want you to know, I think what your parents did was disgusting. You deserve better." Lena smiled bitterly at the message. You should fight this. Contest the will. It's not fair. Fair. The word rang in her ears, but Lena couldn't help but laugh. Fair. Nothing about her relationship with her parents had ever been fair. They had always favored Mia, always showered her with praise, attention, and approval while Lena was left in the shadows, silently working to prove she was worthy of love. But this? This was the last straw. She didn't care about the money, not really. But she couldn't stand the idea of Mia walking away with everything, pretending that she hadn't known about the favoritism and manipulation. No, Lena wasn't going to let that stand. She logged into her laptop and began typing an email. There was someone she needed to contact, a lawyer she had met years ago. Lena wasn't going to fight Mia in court. That would be too slow. Too predictable. This time, she would hit her where it hurt the most. The following week, Lena stood in front of the house that had once been her home, now occupied by Mia and her family. The familiar scent of lavender still lingered in the air, and the sound of children playing in the yard only reminded Lena of the years she had spent trying to feel like she belonged. When Mia opened the door, her eyes widened in surprise. "Lena, I wasn't expecting you," she said, her voice soft, almost too sweet. "I need to get some things," Lena said, her tone flat. "Mom had some personal letters and keepsakes I'd like to have." Mia hesitated, then stepped aside, her perfectly manicured hand sweeping in a gesture of mock generosity. "Of course. Take whatever you need." Lena walked through the house slowly, each room bringing back memories of neglect, of being second best. When she entered her father's study, she didn't even hesitate. She went straight to the desk drawer, pulling it open and rifling through old papers. And there it was. The original will. Lena's fingers trembled as she skimmed through the document. The clause she had been hoping to find, her parents' intent to split the estate evenly between her and Mia, was right there, in black and white. Mia had changed the will. Just then, Lena heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Mia standing in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression calm, even bored. "You weren't supposed to see that," Mia said flatly. Lena's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. "I know." Mia didn't flinch, didn't try to explain. Instead, she shrugged. "Mom and Dad always intended for me to have everything. I just made sure their wishes were properly carried out." Lena stared at her sister, the fury rising inside her. But she didn't scream. She didn't shout. No, this time, she was going to play it smart. She smiled. "Thank you for your honesty. That's all I needed to know." She walked out of the room, already planning her next move. Lena wasn't going to let Mia get away with this. Not this time. The gloves were off. Lena didn't waste any time. Over the next few days, she gathered everything she needed. She had long known that Mia was not the picture of perfect innocence she projected. In fact, Lena had learned things from years of subtle observation. Things Mia thought no one would notice. Things that could tear her world apart if they ever got out. Lena didn't just want the money. She wanted to take Mia down in a way that would change everything, shake her image, expose the carefully crafted facade she'd worn her whole life. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Mia had taken everything from their parents, manipulated their trust, and now Lena had a chance to turn the tables. She hired a private investigator. An old contact, someone she trusted, who knew how to dig deep into people's lives. Lena gave him one simple directive: find everything you can on Mia, anything that would make her look like the fraud she is. Days later, she met the investigator in a small coffee shop, away from the prying eyes of family. He slid a thick folder across the table, his expression unreadable. "This is everything," he said. "You were right. Mia's been playing a very dangerous game." Lena's heart raced as she flipped through the pages, bank statements, property records, even emails between Mia and various business partners. The depth of the deception was staggering. Mia had been hiding a second property in the mountains, one that had never been disclosed to anyone. She'd also siphoned off large amounts of money from her parents' accounts, all under the guise of helping them with expenses. The most damning evidence, however, was a series of forged signatures. Mia had made changes to their mother's will years ago, and Lena had the proof. Lena's mind whirled with possibilities. This wasn't just about money. Mia had been using the family for years, and it was time to expose her. She gathered her things, her fingers gripping the edge of the folder as she tucked it into her bag. "Thank you," she said quietly, standing up to leave. The investigator gave her a nod. "Let me know when you're ready to make your move." Lena left the cafe, her thoughts buzzing. She would be careful. She would be precise. This time, she wouldn't let emotions get in the way. She wasn't the same vulnerable girl she had been when she was younger. This time, she would take control. The evening of the family dinner came too quickly for Lena to feel ready. It had been a month since her mother's funeral, and while the grief still lingered, the anger had transformed into something else, determination. Mia had invited everyone over to her house for a family gathering, which, to Lena, felt like nothing more than a calculated attempt to remind everyone of her superiority. Lena arrived early, giving herself time to observe. She watched as Mia greeted each guest with a warm smile, her laughter charming and effortless. Sean, Mia's husband, was already setting the table, and the kids ran around in the background, their joy filling the room. But Lena wasn't fooled by the domestic picture Mia painted. Beneath the surface, Mia was a fraud. A liar. And Lena was going to expose her for it. As the evening progressed, the conversation flowed like usual. Mia played the role of the perfect hostess, while Lena kept to herself, listening more than speaking. At one point, Mia began to talk about the recent improvements they'd made to the house. "It's been such a blessing," Mia said, her voice sweet. "You know, I've really been able to make this place my own. The money from Mom and Dad's estate really helped us fix things up. It's been such a relief." Lena felt her jaw clench. Mia's words were loaded with so much arrogance, it was almost unbearable. Lena stood up, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. "Funny," Lena began, her tone calm but unwavering, "because I found something interesting recently." Mia froze mid-sentence, her eyes flicking nervously toward Lena. The room quieted as everyone turned to listen. "What are you talking about?" Mia asked, trying to mask her unease. Lena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, I'm sure you'll find this all quite fascinating," she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out the folder from the investigator. "I've been looking into the details of the will. You know, the one you so carefully arranged. Funny thing is, Mia, it wasn't actually Mom and Dad's decision to leave everything to you. It was yours, wasn't it?" Mia's face drained of color. "What are you saying, Lena?" she asked, her voice trembling now. Lena opened the folder and slid the documents onto the table. "I've got signatures, bank statements, and a whole lot more," she said, her voice growing in confidence with every word. "You forged signatures. You took money that wasn't yours. You lied to everyone, including me. You didn't just get everything because you were the most in need. You got everything because you manipulated the situation to your advantage." The room fell into stunned silence. Mia's facade was cracking, and for the first time, she seemed genuinely terrified. Sean looked at her, his face filled with confusion and concern. "Mia, what is this?" he asked, his voice soft. Mia opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She was caught, trapped in her own lies. And Lena could see it. Mia had always been so carefully crafted, but now, all the pieces were falling apart. Lena turned to the family, her voice cold but steady. "I won't let this go. Not this time. If you all want to pretend this didn't happen, that's your choice. But I'm not staying silent any longer. She looked at Mia one last time, her eyes burning with intensity. This is just the beginning. The days following the dinner were a whirlwind. Lena's revelations were impossible to ignore. News spread like wildfire, her accusations, the documents, the undeniable proof of Mia's deceit. The family was in turmoil, but Mia's carefully constructed world was unraveling faster than she could stop it. Lena didn't care about the fallout. She had finally broken free of the suffocating web of lies and manipulation that had controlled her for so long. As for Mia, well, Lena wasn't finished yet. She still had a few more cards to play. She wasn't the same girl who had been ignored, dismissed, and cast aside. Lena had learned that sometimes, the only way to get what you truly deserve was to take it. And she wasn't going to stop until she had exposed every dark corner of Mia's life. The game had changed, and Lena was ready to play. Part 7, The Fall. In the weeks that followed the dinner, Lena's life took on a new rhythm. No longer did she walk in the shadows of her family, unnoticed and unheard. She had become the center of attention, and although it felt strange, it also felt empowering. Her phone rang constantly, journalists, relatives, friends, everyone had something to say about what happened that night. But Lena was resolute. She wasn't going to back down. Mia, on the other hand, had gone quiet. The once confident woman who had controlled every conversation was now nowhere to be found. Her social media accounts had gone dark, her phone calls unanswered. Lena knew it was only a matter of time before Mia tried to make a move. She always had a way of twisting things to fit her narrative. But this time, Lena would be ready. Lena's next step was to meet with a lawyer. She had never been one to enjoy legal battles, but now, she was determined to see this through. She walked into the lawyer's office with purpose, the folder of documents still in her bag, each piece of evidence weighing heavily on her mind. The lawyer, a sharp woman in her mid-40s named Rachel, greeted her with a firm handshake. "Lena, I've reviewed the information you provided. This is, a lot," Rachel said as she glanced over the papers. "But it's solid. You have a real case here. We'll need to act quickly before Mia can retaliate." Lena nodded. "I'm not worried about retaliation. I've already started this, and I intend to finish it." Rachel smiled. "Good. That's the spirit we need. We'll file a petition to invalidate the changes to the will and present everything to the court. The forged signatures, the fraudulent transactions, it'll all come to light." Lena sat back in the chair, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment she would take back control. Mia didn't stay quiet for long. A few days after Lena's meeting with Rachel, Lena received a letter in the mail. It was a legal notice, from Mia's lawyers. Mia was fighting back. She wasn't going down without a fight. Lena opened the letter, her eyes scanning the words with growing disbelief. Mia was accusing her of slander, claiming that the documents Lena had presented were fabricated. She had even filed a restraining order, alleging that Lena had been harassing her. Lena could feel her pulse quicken. Mia wasn't just trying to discredit her, she was trying to turn the tables. She was playing the victim, making herself out to be the one who had been wronged. But Lena had anticipated this. She had known Mia would try to discredit her, to paint her as the villain in this story. What Mia didn't realize was that Lena had thought of everything. Lena met with Rachel again, her mind already turning over the possibilities. "She's going to fight back hard," Lena said, her voice steady but with an edge of determination. "We need to be ready for whatever she throws at us." Rachel nodded, her fingers tapping thoughtfully on the desk. "We will. We've got the evidence, Lena. We've got everything we need. She's going to try to make it look like you're the one attacking her, but all we need to do is stay focused and stick to the facts." Lena's mind raced. This was bigger than just her and Mia. This was about exposing the truth, about taking down someone who had built an empire on lies. The court date arrived faster than Lena had expected. She felt a wave of nerves crash over her as she stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, the weight of what she was about to do sinking in. But she refused to let fear take hold. She had already made it this far, there was no turning back now. The courtroom was filled with tension. Mia sat at the front, her lawyer beside her, looking poised and ready for battle. Lena sat on the other side, her own lawyer by her side, her eyes trained on Mia. This was it. The judge called the court to order, and the proceedings began. Lena's heart raced as Rachel stood and made her opening statement, presenting the forged documents and fraudulent bank statements. She laid everything out, methodically, precisely. The crowd listened intently, as Rachel painted a damning picture of Mia's manipulation and deceit. The judge listened, his expression serious, his eyes never leaving the evidence in front of him. When it was Mia's turn to speak, she tried to maintain her composure, but there was a noticeable tremor in her voice. She denied everything. She claimed that Lena had misunderstood, that the signatures were legitimate, that the financial transactions were simply mistakes. But the truth was too powerful. The evidence was irrefutable. Mia's lies couldn't stand up to the facts. As the hearing went on, Lena felt a sense of finality begin to settle over her. This was it. Mia's empire was crumbling before her eyes. The verdict came down a week later. It was in Lena's favor. The court ruled that the changes Mia had made to the will were invalid, and Lena was entitled to her share of the inheritance. Mia was ordered to repay the funds she had illegally taken. Lena felt a strange sense of closure wash over her as the judge's words echoed in her mind. Mia had lost. But in a way, Lena felt no satisfaction. The damage had been done, the scars left behind. She didn't feel victorious, she felt like the battle had taken something from her that she could never get back. Mia, on the other hand, was destroyed. Her reputation, her wealth, her relationships, all of it shattered. The woman who had once held so much power was now a broken shell of the person she used to be. She disappeared from the public eye, and Lena never heard from her again. But Lena had gained something far more important than money or revenge. She had gained control of her own life. No longer was she the victim. She was the one in charge of her destiny. In the end, the family tried to heal, but things were never the same. Lena learned the hard way that blood didn't always mean loyalty. Mia had been her sister, but in the end, Lena had been forced to take a stand. It wasn't the happy ending she had hoped for, but it was enough. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think. Your feedback really helps me create better content for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks again and see you in the next video. Take care.